Thank you, Miro, and thank you to our speakers for understanding. We don't want to rush. Thank you, members. We don't want to rush any resolutions. We want to be fair to all our delegates. And I think this is the best way, just to put that in abeyance until we've had our speaker do the presentation, who has been here for the past hour patiently waiting. Our speaker, which will be the last presenter for today, Patrick Brown, is a lawyer with McLeish Orlando. He is a principal partner of McLeish Orlando and has been practicing critical injury in Ontario for over 20 years. His cases have involved spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, wrongful death, biking/cycling injury, daycare and camp negligence, drowning, road disrepair, and motor vehicle collisions. Patrick was appointed by the Office of the Chief Coroner of Ontario as an expert to the Ontario Coroner's 4-year review on cycling deaths. He chaired the Trial Lawyers for Veterans, which provided free legal advice to disabled veterans returning to Canada. He also started and continues the annual Toronto Helmet on Kids program, where he and his firm have donated helmets to children across Toronto to reduce head injuries. He was co-chair with Dr. Charles Tater for Concussion Ontario on the Recognition and Awareness Committee, which seeks to prevent the impact of concussionists within team sports. He is a former director and founding member of Cycle Toronto, a proud member of Bike Law and the chair of the Ontario Safety League, and he frequently attends at Queen's Park and government ministries regarding legislative reform and consultation. Patrick Brown has over the years been a strong supporter of USCO. Not known to many, Patrick Brown has provided pro bono legal advice and legal assistance to us where we have had litigation and lawsuits against the United Senior Citizens of Ontario. We appreciate his caring and his concern and his support of the United Senior Citizens of Ontario. And it's indeed with great pleasure that I welcome on your behalf Patrick Brown. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you.
Firstly, thank you very much, Bernard. I do want to say this to everyone, to Bernard. Many of you I've met over the years. I've been here before. This is not my first time at your convention, but I have been here years before. I don't know how many years, but I see Jerry and Bernard and Pat and Cliff and just different people that I've met over the years, and most of all, Marie. I don't know where Marie is, but, oh, there you are. Anyways, I wanted to congratulate you on your 60th anniversary. I'm very proud to have been associated with the United Seniors, and I've been extremely proud not only to represent you pro bono, because I owe so much back to you for all the help that you've done in relation to different individuals and organizations. And you may or may not know, you have been instrumental in many things that have changed the law and that I've been involved with, and I just wanted to thank you back for all of that. You might not know, but a number of years ago, probably over 10, about maybe 10 years ago, we started to fight. There used to be a law that said, if you're in a car crash and let's say a drunk driver kills a child, back then, the way the law worked based on deductibles is a grandparent who normally had a claim was more or less denied any type of compensation for the loss of care, guidance, and companionship for the loss of their grandchildren. At the same time, if a grandparent was killed in a car crash as a result of a drunk driver or a bad driver, the way the law worked was essentially eliminated any grandchildren from obtaining any compensation for the loss of care, guidance, and companionship of their loved one. And to put that into context, any other type of case where that happened, the grandchild or the grandparent were compensated, but not in car crashes. And over the last 30 to 20, about 20 years, there has never been a change to the Ontario Insurance Act that gave the rights back to an individual for compensation. It's always been taken away until 2010. And in 2010, they changed the law, which then allowed grandparents to be compensated for a loss of a grandchild and grandchildren for the loss of a grandparent. And since then, I have represented hundreds of cases where, in fact, that has taken place. I'm not the only lawyer in Ontario. That has happened by hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals. Marie and myself and other people from this organization fought for that together. We went to Queen's Park, we went into those doors, and we argued for this change of the law. And because of the United Seniors, that law did change, and that happened. And you have changed the lives for many people that you don't know about, but you did. As well, back, we had, I don't know, but we decided that we'd approach the coroner's office because there had been an increasingly number of pedestrians being killed throughout Ontario. That included the seniors. Disproportionate numbers of seniors were the ones that are being hit, killed, and injured. We didn't go and sue. We went to the coroner's office and we said, no, we'd like a review of all those deaths, so that not to ensure that there's lawsuits, but to ensure that there's change and that we start reducing that. And with the United Seniors, I represented you. We went to the coroners, had communication, and we came up with the most comprehensive review in Ontario history in relation to the death of pedestrians. And during that, and out of that, came recommendations. And I can assure you that when you do have new crosswalks, when you do have sidewalks, when you do have bulb outs, when you do have road diets, when you do have reduction of speed, when you have new intersection designs, when you do have new audio at intersections, that has a lot to do with what you did at that coroner's review and demanding the government make change so that we start reducing these deaths. As you can all see, that's Marie there speaking. It's not a great picture, a little bit grainy, but that was Marie just announcing after the announcement of the pedestrian review. Something that's close to my heart, I am a cyclist. I've always been a cyclist activist. When I needed to get into doors, because they really weren't listening to cyclists, a lot of them are considered radical. Many people dislike cyclists. We know the statistics when we look at that many people feel that they're rule breakers. But at the end of the day, many cyclists, certainly in the urban centers and cores, were getting hit disproportionately. They were dying. They were getting seriously injured. And we did the cycling death review. And I attended on behalf of USCO and other organizations, and we demanded change there as well to prevent cycling deaths. And I can assure you, out of that came recommendations from the coroner's office. And as a result, they did change the law. They came up with a 1 meter law, that if a car is to pass a cyclist, they have to give them 1 meter in space. They also introduced paved shoulders in all communities when they do new road design. They increased the bike lanes throughout urban corridors, and they introduced distracted driving laws. All those things were as a result of the United Seniors joining with the coalition and demanding those changes and being proactive to make change in our society. And again, on behalf of all those individuals, thank you. Right now, you have to understand that in the last 40 years, because of collapsible steering wheels, side impact airbags, frontal impact airbags, new designs to automobiles, is that the protection of drivers has increased dramatically. And in fact, statistically, we know that drivers inside vehicles and the deaths and injuries have dramatically been decreasing for 40 years, which has been great. That has a lot to do with our Transport Canada and other laws developed to protect drivers within cars. We have streets that have been redesigned. We have infrastructure that's been in place. We have salt on our roads, all with the intent to reduce the number of deaths behind a wheel. And that's been fantastic. Unfortunately, when Public Health Ontario released their statistics, that was not the case for what we call vulnerable road users: cyclists, pedestrians, police officers, other people that are on the road that are not in a car. The laws, in fact, have not been implemented to protect them, and even though we've seen a decrease on drivers' deaths and injury, we have been seeing a rise in pedestrian and cycling deaths. Pedestrian deaths and injuries, the primary target or number of people that are getting hit is seniors. That's been shown statistically. 4,994 pedestrians this year will be taken into an emergency room after being struck down by a car. That is a very large number. If you add the cyclists to them, that's 20 a day. And it's happening throughout Ontario. It's happening in all our communities. It's just not Toronto. It's an Ontario problem. So I came here approximately 3 years ago, and I asked you to support what was called the Vulnerable Road User Laws. In that, I had asked you, and I had went over, and I'll show you the statistics when what I addressed. But at that time, we were simply asking for a new law to be passed because we know that there is very little deterrence within the system for people that break the law with their cars, who hit pedestrians and cyclists and kill and maim them. To this date, you passed a resolution 3 years ago. That resolution was sent to the government demanding for the Vulnerable Road User Protection Act. That act has not happened. I can tell you, though, with Jerry and Bernard and Marie and others, we've done 2 private members' bills. I've appeared before the standing committee for an amendment, and to this date, we have not gotten to where we want to get to. And we are going to continue with that, and I anticipate this upcoming year there will be another private member's bill before the Queen's Park, and hopefully this law will pass. Why should this law pass? Because people like Eduardo is in the Montreal jersey. Eduardo was killed. He was crossing on a green light when he was struck down by a car. The gentleman in the lawsuit, dressed up like a lawyer, was in fact a lawyer. He again was a senior. He had been cycling across Canada in order to raise awareness about insufficient funds for people to access legal services. When he got to Ontario, he was going to burn his robes in front of Parliament Hill. He was killed. He was struck down by a car. The driver had been drinking at a golf course before he struck him down. And then the other gentleman there is Bruce. Bruce, again, too, was struck down by a car that lost control and went to the opposite side of the roadway and struck him and launched him into a field. With Bruce, the lady had argued that her flip-flop had gotten caught into the accelerator when she lost control, and she was bending down to fix it when she went to the opposite direction into the other lane and struck Bruce. She got a $500 fine at the end of the day. That was the result of what happened in that case. With Dougal, who was going to burn his robes, well, in fact, they had charged the driver, but there was no witnesses, and eventually they withdrew that. In my civil case, I proved through engineering evidence that, in fact, the driver did struck Bruce while he was on the side of the road and dragged him several meters down the road. With Eduardo, who was simply crossing on a green light, that was a $700 fine. Those are only a few examples, and I can tell you statistically, these weren't just ones we pulled out and they were novel. In fact, this is a repeated thing. It happens on our streets every day. People are walking away that seriously injure people, who break the law and are walking out with $85, $100 fines. Those people up there, Harry was a father of 4 when he was struck down and killed on his bike. That person received an $85 fine. JB up there, when he was struck down, will never work again because of a traumatic brain injury and hasn't for the last 10 years. And then in relation to the other gentleman there on Queen Street in Niagara, he was a reporter for the CBC and had to leave Toronto and started up a new life in France as a result of multiple injuries throughout his body. Unfortunately, this happens far too frequently throughout our streets on a regular basis. That law has not changed, and it still exists. This is our last attempt on trying to bring the vulnerable road user. That law is not asking to put people in jail, because people who hit people with their cars can break a light, run a red light, speed, do all kinds of things. And at the end of the day, they might not intend to do that. But a small fine is simply unacceptable in order to send a message to the rest of the public that you should drive properly, you should drive within the speed limit, and you should pay attention to what's around you. So what this law simply asked, in which you passed your resolution and demanded 2 years ago from this government, or the last government, was if you do strike somebody down and you do kill or seriously injure them, and they convict you that you broke the law, you did something wrong, then in addition to any of these fines or other penalties you want to hand them, at least suspend their driver's license until they take a driving course. Prove to someone that you're responsible enough and have the ability enough to get back on the road and drive like other responsible individuals. So take a driving course. That's it. Number 2, do some community service and road safety, 50 hours of educational road safety issues so that you actually kind of reflect on what happened. And until that happens, you're not going to get your driver's license back. But more importantly, and what was happening, and I've been there in the courtroom, is that when an individual loses a loved one, generally they get to go to court and they write what's called a victim impact statement.